Hello guys, welcome back. And today I'm going to be talking about William Nylander and his whole contract debacle with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, we're almost a week into the NHL season, and there's two RFAs, restricted free agents, still in the NHL. You got Nick Ritchie with the Anaheim Ducks, but most importantly, you got William Nylander with the Toronto Maple Leafs, which has been a huge deal with Toronto and the Maple Leafs. Now, one of the big reasons why is because William Nylander is a core opponent of the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's a core reason why they made the playoffs 2 straight years and why they're looking to be a great team for the future. William Nylander is a part of the Toronto Maple Leafs and is one of their best young stars. So why is it taking this long for him to get signed, and why is there uncertainty for his future? I think if John Tavares wasn't signed, there would be much more of a need for William Nylander contributing that offense that they would need without John Tavares. But because of John Tavares, I think it leaves a little bit of a situation for Nylander to where the Maple Leafs don't really need him. He is a great asset to have, but for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're kind of stalling right now, and they're trying to get as low as they can with his contract to make sure that Marner can get lower, and of course Austin Matthews will sign for lower. Now, William Nylander at age 22 has been a great guy for the last 3 years. He was drafted 8th overall in 2014 NHL draft, and in his career he's played 185 games, has gotten 48 goals, 87 assists for 135 points. Has been one of the best guys in the last 2 years in the NHL when it comes to points. He's really made a name for himself, and offensively he's been one of the best guys in the NHL. So while the Toronto Maple Leafs don't need him right now, he still is an amazing offensive threat to have. Now, if Nylander were to get signed, this wouldn't just affect William Nylander. This would affect the other contracts on the team, of course. With Mitch Marner in a year, that's a whole nother situation, a whole nother ball game, which could result in be maybe lower if William Nylander were to sign for a lower price. I wouldn't say that Austin Matthews is the same situation. Austin Matthews, of course, is a more bona fide center. I'd probably say a league above Nylander. Austin Matthews is amazing, so I don't know if the contract would directly correlate to that. But I think with Mitch Marner, if William Nylander could get pretty low in his contract, I think it would definitely put some money away from Mitch Marner, just because I don't know if there's too much of a gap between Nylander and Mitch Marner. Now, to me, I'd say that Mitch Marner maybe deserves $1 million more than Nylander, maybe 1.5 at the most, but I'm not one of those guys that thinks Mitch Marner deserves $3 or $4 million more than Nylander. I think they're a lot closer than people do expect, and with the points, it does show that already. William Nylander is a fantastic guy. We've seen him throughout the last couple of years really be one of the main threats for Toronto, so again, even with that loaded offense right now, William Nylander is still a massive part of the team. And again, with this upcoming contract, it affects a lot of things. Not just Toronto Maple Leafs with Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews coming up, it also affects a lot of the contracts coming up in the NHL. A lot of young wingers are asking for more and more these days, and we've seen that with David Pastrnak getting a pretty big payday, and hopefully William Nylander getting that. For right now, he will set a precedent. He will set a bar of what these young guys will be worth. And right now, I think that David Pastrnak deal is a bargain, and for William Nylander, I think he would want to get a lot more than that. So this could really set the bar for what these guys are worth and what they'll get paid. But then again, things have been pretty quiet on the Toronto Maple Leafs side of things. They haven't really given too much information. Of course, it seems like it's at a standstill right now between the negotiations of the Maple Leafs and William Nylander. So for right now, it doesn't seem like it'll get done in the next week, maybe not even in the next 2 weeks. I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are fine. They've obviously scored a lot of goals so far. I think they scored 13 goals in the first 3 games, so the offense for Toronto is not a problem right now. But a big concern to me, if they don't get this deal done in the next couple of weeks, is the sustainability. Of course, they just scored 7 goals against Chicago Blackhawks. Their offense is obviously doing pretty good right now, but I'm just concerned about how long that'll last for them. If they don't get William Nylander signed in that next couple of weeks, maybe even month, I'm scared for how their offense will continue to produce, if it will continue to produce. Because let's be honest, William Nylander is still a big part of that team and a big part of their offense, and if he's left out of there, Toronto Maple Leafs could slump a little bit in the offensive end. Now again, while the contract talks have been pretty much at a halt, pretty much at a standstill, it begs the question, should the Toronto Maple Leafs actually consider trading a guy like William Nylander? Now, to me, it's an obvious answer, no. But there have been some interesting things coming along in the last couple of weeks to where, of course, we've seen the negotiations kind of come at a standstill to where you could make the case that Toronto should trade a guy like Nylander to maybe bolster that defense. In the past week, we've seen Carolina express interest for William Nylander, which is big news because we haven't really seen a dedicated team really go after William Nylander, but apparently they were checking in to see what was happening there, and Carolina could be a very interesting option. Of course, Carolina has gotten to a great start so far with their offense, so no, they really need them, but the defense, they have some guys that they could give off, mainly guys like Falk, who they've been shipping off already, that they've been trying to ship off already, so there is some interesting options there for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It wouldn't be the worst idea ever to get a defenseman for William Nylander. Of course, they haven't had the best defense so far in the 3 games that they played. Against Ottawa, it was pretty pedestrian, and against, of course, Chicago, it was terrible. And while I think some of that comes with the new season, again, we're only 3 games in, there has been some growing pains with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they've looked pretty pedestrian, pretty slow in their own end. So, for me, while, again, I don't feel like they should trade a guy like William Nylander, there isn't the worst case ever. You could still make a case for it, and for a defenseman, that would be the route that Toronto takes. If they were to trade William Nylander, I can't see them trading for anything other than a defenseman, because really, that's what they need right now. Even if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, you gotta admit that in the last couple of days, it's not been the greatest defense. The team effort as a whole has not been the best defensively, and they would need maybe a spark plug there. And again, while I'm not suggesting they should trade Nylander, I feel like it would be a very interesting option and a very interesting path for Toronto to take, especially for right now while they're not looking the best defensively. Again, while it's 3 games in, I feel like maybe making that choice to bolster that defense for a possible playoff run might not be the worst idea ever. Now, Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan have said that they're not actively shopping William Nylander, but that's the thing. They're not actively shopping him. So that means that any team that comes with a trade offer may be free reign, and we'll see some of that in the next few weeks. If William Nylander continues to be unsigned, we might see some interesting trade offers from some other teams, and some possibly picked up interest, as some teams might be getting out to terrible starts offensively to start off the year. So there might be some hasty general managers in the league, maybe looking at a William Nylander and saying, hey, I like that on my team. But again, we know the stress is on Kyle Dubas' shoulders to handle this team. Again, this is a cap salary league, this is a salary cap league, so you gotta make these contracts as low as you possibly can. But he got himself in this situation with John Tavares. He knew that if he signed John Tavares, there would be these tight cap situations. With William Nylander, this is a hard decision to make, but he put himself in this situation, and I'm hoping that he had this thing planned out, because if he didn't, they could be in big trouble. But for right now, while the offense might be rolling Toronto, I don't know how long that'll last. I don't know how much they can sustain this throughout the next 20, 30, 40, 60, 80 games. It's going to be an interesting case to see where William Nylander ends up. Will he stay with Toronto, or how much will he get signed for? It's really going to be an interesting story for the next couple of weeks if he's not signed or if he is. But it has been a big situation for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is a big decision on their hands that will affect a lot of their organization. But the answer for if the Toronto Maple Leafs should trade William Nylander, no, they probably shouldn't. They should probably keep on to him if they can. But the Toronto Maple Leafs might just be put into a hole that they might have to explore some options here. So while I don't think that they should trade him, I think that there's options that they'll take, and there might be maybe some unexpected moves made by Kyle Dubas in the next couple of weeks. Now, the Maple Leafs have until December 1st to sign him. Otherwise, he'll have to sit automatically until the end of the year. Till then, I think he becomes a UFA. So I don't think the Toronto Maple Leafs want that. I don't think William Nylander wants that. So obviously, it's going to take a lot of dispute between the two, but I think a deal will ultimately get done, or a trade could happen. Either way, something will happen before December 1st, and I don't think it gets to that point. But if I had to make an official prediction for what he'll get signed as, I'm going to say 6 years at $6.85 million, just above David Pastrnak. I think that obviously the cap is going up, so I think that's going to be a steal of a deal in 4 or 5 years. Honestly, William Nylander, I think it might be even worth more than that, and I think at year 6 is going to be a fantastic contract. So I think that getting him done at a maybe longer term deal for Toronto will be in their best interest. I think that getting him at 6.8 might be in William Nylander's best interest too. But of course, this is one of those videos where I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about William Nylander? Do you think he'll get traded? Do you think he'll get signed? And what do you ultimately think about this whole William Nylander situation? But that's going to be it for today, guys. If you guys enjoy, make sure you like and subscribe again. Tell me below your thoughts about this William Nylander situation and the contracts, or if you got traded. And I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.